Master horse racing with daily racing forms Formulator, now free for DRF Bets members. Sign up to get the best bonus in racing with a $250 deposit match, plus a $10 free bet and free Formulator past performances. Go to drf.com/bet to play like a pro today.
Hi, everybody. Dan Illman, Mike Beer, taking a look back at the third leg of the 2023 Triple Crown, the Belmont Stakes. Kind of a wild Triple Crown season, Mike. Three different winners of the Derby, Preakness, and Belmont. The Derby winner ran third in the Preakness. He didn't show up in the Belmont. The Preakness winner didn't run in the Derby. He didn't run very well in the Belmont. Last year's two-year-old champion, Forte, who many thought was the best one, only competed in one of the three, the Belmont Stakes, and he ran second. But all hail Arcangelo, the winner of the Belmont. Let's watch him. He is the number 3. He broke smoothly, and he found a very good spot early as Preakness winner National Treasure tries his gate-to-wire gambit again.
Yeah, I mean, he did break really well from the gate. I'll give this horse, I think this horse deserves a little extra credit, though. Arcangelo, Dan, this pace isn't slow early. They're moving right along. And Arcangelo, yeah, he gets to save a lot of ground in this race, and some of his rivals in this race weren't quite as lucky in that regard. This horse keeps right up close to what is a very solid pace going this distance. He's always traveling pretty strongly in this race. And, he's the one who moves early in this race to go challenge for it, along with a couple of others, and he stayed on the best.
Let's talk about Forte, who right now is just outside of Arcangelo as National Treasure is prompted from the rail by Tappet Shoes, from the outside by Hit Show. It looked like Forte got into a good position, and then it seemed like he ran in spots.
Well, I didn't see any problem with his trip at all, Dan. He's up close to this pace, as well as are, everybody who was there at the end of this race pretty much. He's not in a bad position here. He's in it among horses, but he's covered up. He seems like he's, moving along pretty nicely here in a decent trip. This pace is good. They're going to start making moves right about now, Dan. A bunch of horses are going to go to take on National Treasure, including the winner, Tappet Trice, who's just to the outside of Forte right now. He's going to go. Angel of Empire is going to go. And Forte just kind of can't move with those horses. He's under a ride here. He's going to lose a little bit of ground, and then he will stay very determinedly in the stretch.
National Treasure, who remains off the rail, is going to try to kick on for home. Up to this point, he was moving very strongly. You saw Tappet Trice, Mike, from the back of the pack attempt a 4-wide bid to get into contention, and I think Luis Saez was counting on this horse's stamina to sort of grind him home, but the ground-saving tactics from Arcangelo work beautifully. He slips on through along the rail.
Yeah, he got through on the inside, but he's still going pretty strongly here too, Dan. He takes the race to National Treasure. The horses who are right behind those two, Hit Show, Angel of Empire, Tappet Trice, they all tried to make the same move Arcangelo made, Dan. They couldn't quite reach contention, and now they're just all forging through the stretch. Nobody's finishing strongly in this race. I've, seen some comments from people that, Forte finished really strongly in here. He did not. Nobody's finishing strongly in here. This is a very slow final quarter. A game effort from Forte to get second, but those horses just could not reach contention when Arcangelo went to take on the leader.
Arcangelo had a good trip, but he also had that burst of speed. And once he put away National Treasure, they couldn't get to him. He earned a 102 Beyer speed figure. He has improved his Beyer from each and every start. And it's remarkable to think that this horse was still a maiden in the middle of March, and that the Belmont was his first start around 2 turns. He was coming off a victory in the local prep, the Peter Pan, going 1 1/8 miles. It looks like he's going to be based up at Saratoga for Jenna Antonucci, and we'll see. I would assume the Travers is the long-term goal. This is a horse with a tremendous amount of upside potential still, and this 3-year-old division is still in disarray.
It is. It's up for grabs right now. The horses who I think, most of us thought were going to, lead this thing through the summer and into the fall, they just, so far haven't really done their best running, I would say, in the major Kentucky Derby and Triple Crown races, Dan. We'll see what happens. Arcangelo, there's absolutely nothing to knock about this horse. All of his races are good. His Peter Pan was good. He was much the best in this Belmont Stakes with a pretty strong figure to boot. He has a tremendous pedigree, and it seems like we haven't seen his best race yet.
And while Forte was the beaten favorite in this race, he had a lot of things going against him in this Belmont. He hadn't run in 10 weeks. We know the foot issue, which forced him out the day of the Kentucky Derby. And all things considered, I think he got second on class alone. He probably wasn't 1,000% fit to go a mile and a half. I would expect Forte and his stablemate Tapit Trice, their long-term goal to be the Travers, and I wouldn't be surprised if one runs in the Haskell and one runs in the Jim Dandy before that.
I think all those things are fair points regarding Forte. Obviously, this Triple Crown series didn't go the way his connections wanted it to go for him. And so he had things working against him here. I don't think, you want to be too hard on him for not being able to get the job done going a mile and a half in the Belmont Stakes. He'll never have to go this distance again, Dan. I agree with you. I think he might have just gotten second on class alone here. Pretty good performance, all things considered. It'll be very interesting to see what he does the rest of the year.
Tapit Trice got off the inside, which I thought was key. It doesn't appear like he likes to be down inside and behind horses. Saez did get him to the outside. He did make an early move. Was it too early, or is at this point he's just a one-paced plotter and he needs to start showing a little bit more spice?
Yeah, as it turns out, Dan, I think all the things that people liked about him heading into the Derby, or into the Belmont rather, they're all the things that really worked against him in this kind of a race. I just think you can't ask a horse to go a mile and a half when you have to ride him from the gate. And you can go back and watch the start of this race, Dan. He's away, last. He's sort of outrun to the first turn. He is already under a ride. Saez is having to ask this horse before they even get to the first turn. And then he has to, because he doesn't like to race behind horses, I guess. I don't know if that's actually true or not. But they just take him wide. So he's wide up the backstretch. He's widest, 4 or 5 wide all around the final turn. He's still trying to stay on at the end of this race. But I just think that's asking way too much of a horse going a mile and a half. Personally, I think he ran the second best race here, considering the trip that he got in here. It's still fair to question how good he actually is, but I didn't think he ran poorly in this race at all.
National Treasure, of course, won the Preakness. He upset Mage when able to get to the lead and back down the fractions. It was a completely different pace scenario here. He was pushed early through that solid pace by Tapit Shoes. He seemed to be moving comfortably after a mile, but as you saw when Arcangelo came coming inside the quarter pole, there was nothing left for National Treasure. Was it a combination of distance? Was it a combination of pace? Can we give him a mulligan, or is that Preakness starting to look like a fluke?
Thought he ran pretty well in this race, all things considered. Listen, this horse is fine. I didn't love his Preakness just because it was a bad field and he had all the best of it there and still had to work pretty hard to win. He ran fine in this race. This pace was very solid. It's not like, at least in my opinion, it's not like he totally threw in the towel in this race, Dan. He was taken on pretty early by several challengers. He was the one who lasted to about the 3/16 pole with Arcangelo. Ultimately, he was no match. He did get tired at the end. When did he lose second in this race? Inside the final 8th? I don't know. He wound up finishing, 6th? I still think he ran pretty well in here.
Hit Show was pretty aggressively ridden once again, and the Derby broke from the inside post. And maybe that forced Manny Franco's hand a bit to be close to the pace. Here he was up close again. He stayed on pretty well to dead heat for 4th with Angel of Empire. He never looked like he was going to win, but like some of the others, he kept on trying in the stretch.
Yeah, he ran fine in this race as well. He was close to the solid pace, but so was the winner, and so was Angel of Empire. I mean, it's not like he had a big trip excuse this time. Still ran pretty well when he couldn't quite reach the leaders as they came to about the final quarter there. He's another one. He did not throw in the towel. He tried really, really hard in this race and actually was just out finished for second in the very late stages. He ran fine in here.
I think Angel of Empire fans knew they were in trouble going into the first turn when he was 4 wide and just sort of hung outside most of the way. And then when Tapit Trice moved, probably at around the 5/8 pole, that sort of forced Angel of Empire's hand as well. So it turned into a test of stamina, which might not be his forte, no pun intended. At the end of the day, I thought he ran okay. I think the wide trip hurt him.
I think he ran, yeah, I agree with that. I think he ran okay as well, but this is one of the things that I was sort of referring to earlier on when we were talking about the horses that we thought were going to be, really strong in these Triple Crown races. Angel of Empire is one of those. I thought his Derby was just okay with a really good trip. Ultimately, maybe the addition of blinkers actually worked against him here, Dan. He got a little, he was much more forward in this race, but he also got caught wide because they were trying to go forward with him. I don't know. He ran fine in this race. To me, he didn't have any excuse at all. He just wasn't really quite good enough, but it's not like it was a terrible performance.
Red Route 1 finished fourth in the Preakness when he was forced to stay a lot closer to the pace. This time around, he was able to revert to the closing tactics that had resulted in his best performances to date. The pace was there for him. He didn't fire at all. And now I think it's fair to wonder if he's a notch or two below the top 3-year-olds in the country.
Yeah, he's just not very good. I get that things were working against him in the Preakness, but it's not like he ran great in that race, and he was just a total non-factor in here.
Let's take a closer look at the Belmont Stakes winner, Arcangelo. And Mike talked about his pedigree. It's wondrous that he only sold for $35,000 as a yearling. He is by Arrogate, a Breeders' Cup Classic winner. The dam's a half-sister to a Grade 1 stakes winning router named Streaming. And talk about a Belmont Stakes pedigree. This is the family of Rags to Riches and Jazzle, both Belmont Stakes winners. Stamina, no problem. He was still running at the end of this race. And if he stays sound and healthy, we're going to see him at Saratoga, and maybe he's the one of the three Triple Crown, the three separate winners of the Triple Crown races to kind of take that big step forward in the summer and into the fall.
It's certainly possible, Dan. He's going to have to meet up with the Derby winner at some point. Of course, Arcangelo wasn't in that Kentucky Derby, and then Mage was not in this Belmont Stakes. He's going to have to meet up with that horse at some point, and that horse certainly is going to have a say in what happens the second half of this year. Even some of the horses that he does beat in this race, Dan, I mean, listen, Arcangelo to me was much the best in here. But, we'll see if some of these horses can continue on. It's not like he's a total standout right now, but he's certainly very good.
Let's take a look at the prices for the Belmont Stakes. Arcangelo, 7-1, returns $17.80. Forte, last year's 2-year-old champion, off the layoff, ran second. Tapit Trice, his stable mate, was third. Arcangelo will be based up at Saratoga this summer, and maybe we'll see a rematch with Forte, Tapit Trice, and maybe we'll see him take on Mage in a race like the Travers.